We're going to talk to Michele Hanisee now, president of the Association of Deputy District Attorneys, who wants everybody to know about this craziness.
Michele, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
This is really baffling. I don't know what to ask you because I don't understand this. Why would you?
I don't know what to tell you because I don't understand this.
What were the arguments that Bradford made in introducing this bill with this example of the guy who shot into a crowd?
Well, you mentioned his second poster child who did shoot in a drive-by shooting from a car into a crowd of people because he'd asked those total strangers where a party was and they didn't know of a party. So you could see why he would have some sympathy for that defendant, right?
Yeah, right.
So there was a good reason for the shooting.
That's the alternate universe.
Yes. There was a first poster child before that named Travis Manning, and this woman, Miss McGill, sat next to Senator Bradford at a Senate hearing, under oath presumably, and testified about poor Travis Manning committing a burglary of a GameStop that he only used a BB gun, and he had no criminal record, and the judge said he didn't want to sentence him to this enhancement. And they forget that everything in the criminal record is public record and readily available. And we looked up what she said, and everything she said was a lie. I have the transcripts. The defendant had a criminal history. He used a real gun in a store with small children present and robbed teenage clerks at gunpoint and terrorized them. So when we showed that Travis Manning was, their story on that was a complete fallacy, they had to find a new poster child. But you can't really find a good poster child for criminals using guns to terrorize people relating to this enhancement.
And what about John?
To violent crimes.
And what about John's big question, which I think is a good one? I mean, usually this crowd and this far left progressive Democrat crowd in Sacramento is so anti-gun. Wouldn't they want to pile on if you're using a gun?
You would think so, but it's a perfect illustration of the utter hypocrisy and intellectual inconsistency of our legislators who want stricter gun control for everyone except the criminals who actually use guns in violent crimes.
Yeah, that is bizarre. And by how much would they be able to reduce penalties with this bill?
We call this the big gun allegation, and it adds 10, 20, or even 25 to life for use of a gun during really a very short list of the most violent crimes, things like murder, kidnapping, rape, mayhem. So depending on whether you use it, discharge the gun, or discharge it causing great bodily injury or death decides the additional time. But, this is what the public decided we needed to stop criminals from using guns against victims in violent crime.
So these laws had all been on the books for many years, these gun enhancement sentences.
Yes. Penalties.
Yes.
And now they're all gone?
They're not gone. What this bill does, it says a judge can strike that additional penalty if they want to. And that would be fine. But, judges don't always make decisions that our community agrees with. And in addition to not that, then the person not only is not getting that additional enhancement for their extra bad behavior of using a gun, it also had prevented the judge from granting them probation on the underlying case.
You know what I don't understand here is this is a separate charge, correct? This is an enhancement, and
yes.
it's linked to a real violent felony. I mean, somebody shot someone else.
Yes.
And this is the extra sentence on top of it for using a gun in addition to committing a murder or the attempted murder, whatever the original charge is.
Correct.
Why would there be any sympathy for those people? Why? Because this whole movement started a few years ago, and it was about some of these people are in prison for possessing marijuana. They're victimless crimes. They're addicts, and now we are down to reducing sentences for people who actually murdered other people.
Yes, this is not the victimless crime. These are crimes with victims when you use a gun against another human being. Use it, shoot the gun, shoot the gun and injure them.
What's the backstory to this, though? This is coming from somewhere for a reason. Because this is
some
obvious.
of it's probably still about trying to keep the state prison population lower. I'm sure that's part of it.
Well, that's been the governor's agenda and our legislature's agenda is to reduce penalties for crime as much as possible and to allow out as many criminals from prison as early as possible. So it's very consistent with their agenda. And what we've seen from AB 109, Prop 47, Prop 57, all of those are about letting criminals out of prison early.
They're starting to act collectively sociopathic because there's clearly going to be more victims. the more you let all these bad guys out into prison. Innocent people are going to get shot and killed. Well, why is that? When did that happen?
They slipped over the moral event horizon.
They slipped over the moral event horizon. I've never heard that phrase.
That's a good phrase.
Yeah, they think they're doing good. It's like when Darth Vader goes from being the good, Jedi to suddenly he's evil, and he doesn't even know when he turns evil.
Yeah, that's how far they've gone with this.
It does seem like something magical has happened, because I remember not that long ago where politicians would compete to protect victims. And
they don't seem to care about victims anymore.
No, and their statements here are all full of things like, this will allow us to begin comprehensive rehabilitation, reduce recidivism. We can work with these people that used a gun in the crime. Why lock them up?
They measure their own morality by the breaks they give to people who commit evil.
Yes, and they totally disregard the very, very real harm that this does to victims. And you ask anyone who's been the victim, say, of a robbery, even where they just have a gun pointed against their head, they think they're going to die. And that's a terrifying moment, and the victims are being forgotten in this.
Have you talked to any of these legislators, anybody in the governor's office?
I have been up there testifying in front of these legislators, and you can talk all day, and it goes in one ear and out the other.
So they no longer feel any empathy towards the victims. There's no story that you can tell them that makes them stop and say, all right, what we're doing is crazy here. What we're doing is wrong. It's going to harm people or kill people. They don't. Nope. They don't feel that anymore.
Apparently not.
Yeah,
wow.
And I love the way they continue to try to empty out the prisons with bills like this, believing, I haven't seen it yet, is there a magic pill you can give an inmate as he's released that rehabilitates him, make sure he's not a recidivist? I mean, do we have that? Because that's the way they're acting.
That's the big lie, because they keep talking about meaningful rehabilitation, but they don't fund the meaningful rehabilitation.
No, there isn't any.
They keep cutting funds to the counties who are in charge of rehabilitation and programs, so it's all words and no money, and you can't do it without money.
All right, Michele, we appreciate you coming on to explain to the audience another horrific piece of legislation signed by Jerry Brown. Thank you.
My pleasure.